Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and again, we have somebody on the podcast whose recovery I admire greatly. I admire your walk. I'm excited to hear and learn about you. I always share on here that I think I know people until they come on, and I learn so much more about them.
Right.
And the bond is even greater afterwards. So we're excited to have you here. Noble just celebrated 2 years without anything, no mood or mind-altering substances for 2 whole years. And so I was there to see that, and I'm very happy for you. Noble, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. It's an honor.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for coming. So we're going to start it the same way as we always do. Tell us about what it was like for you growing up.
Oh, man. I grew up in South Central, 109th and Broadway, where, you know, it's an infestation of drugs there. I grew up in a household dysfunctional, but, you know, you don't know it's dysfunctional until you start learning, you know, what functional means and then what truly is functional. Right. Do you know what I mean? But I grew up in a house where there was abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. You didn't show emotions. You didn't even tell the women that you loved them in the family. You grew up. I grew up like that, and then I grew up almost split. My mom was an educator, so I got a lot of education, even in South Central, which I don't know if you guys know South Central. Being educated, you're already made fun of, so it caused, you know, awkwardness around other people and things like that, or in my society around other blacks, around, you know what I mean? You can't be too smart, you can't be, but my mom, she used to punish us with book reports, so I got in trouble a lot, so I did a lot of reading and book reports, and she knows if you're just trying to plagiarize or do stuff, she would be very hectic on that. But
did she grade them?
Yeah, she would grade them, definitely. Oh, wow. And if you messed up, you're gonna do it again. You know, you're gonna go back and do it again. But my dad, he was in and out. He would, you know, leave at times. He was a Rolling Stone. You know, he was gone. Drugs were in the house. Alcohol was in the house all the time. But he would be there, then be gone for a couple years and come back, you know. So he would, and then when he come back, it would always be abuse and things of that. Now, I was the oldest of 4 of us, you know, so a lot of pressure was put on me and things like that.
Yeah.
So growing up was pretty, you know, it was, and we grew up poor. So now going to school, you know, I'm made fun of. I'm wearing Huskies. I'm wearing, you know, bell-bottom pants and things like that, you know. So I would, you know, get in trouble, get in fights and things of that growing up, going to school in South Central.
Okay. Was there drugs in the household or alcohol at all?
There was drugs. I remember, you know, it's funny when you guys ask those things because I don't think of my addiction until later in life.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing, you know, when it got full blown.
Yeah.
But I was given beer, 1, 2, 3, whiskey, if you're, you know what I mean, toothache. Remember finding my dad's can under the bed of weed seeds and, you know, like the old stress, like he smoked. And
pack of zigzags.
Yeah, pack of zigzags with the can. He had the cookie cans, the old cookie cans, cans, dude. And I was tripping out on that, like because I had to write a goodbye letter and to my old self, and those things started coming up. Like, you know, like I said, I didn't consider myself an addict until years, you know. In the fellowship, you hear a lot of people, they say, man, I started at this age, and then I couldn't associate with it. you know, but then, yes, I can associate with it. I'm like, what, you know, that's part of that denial I was going through, because as I was going back, I'm like, oh yeah, you dabbled in here. You may not was full blown right away, you know, but you were dabbling, going in the can, getting things at an early age.
I remember I was talking to someone and they're like, oh yeah, I started using when I was like 21. And I was like, so you didn't do nothing up until, oh no, I drank a lot, but like I didn't get into the hard stuff until I was 20. And I'm like, for me, my disease started at 12 years old. The first time I smoked a joint, right, and got a head change, and I realized that there was something outside of myself that can make me feel better about myself, right? That's when it all took off, right? And obviously at 12 years old, I wasn't like having weed every single day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like we would go to school, few dollars, you got a few dollars, you got $150, let's go get a blunt and a bag, and we smoke, and that was like it for the day. You know what I'm saying? But like,
$6 got you like 3 blunts.
But that's where my disease started, right? That's not where it ended, right? The progression of the disease, right? Because we always convince ourselves, especially like as young kids, well, I'm never going to do this because I see my neighbors, I see my mom, I seen all these people like super loaded. I'm like, I don't want to be weird like that. Then I became weird like that, you know?
My disease, I feel like, started before the drugs, like taking a look back at it, like there was defiant behavior, sneaking the cigarettes like at 10, 11 years old and smoking them in the backyard. And like, I remember breaking into cars, unlocked cars, before I ever got loaded. Stealing like those big CD cases out of, you know, in my neighborhood. And it was before I ever used. And so the behaviors were there.
Yeah.
No, and that's two good points you both brought up, because it's funny when you brought that up. In my neighborhood, South Central, you got crack was an epidemic.
Yeah.
And so you see that, you don't ever want to be like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the fact of my father being abusive, and I said I would never want to be like that, you know, and then years later you end up being like that.
Yep.
And then it's awesome what you said, Mike, about the deviant behavior. Before the first drugs were in my system, I was criminal, stealing from my mom's purse, taking money out, stealing her jewelry to give to some girl at school. You know what I mean? Crazy things that I look back like, and this was great jewelry, you know, that she had, like jade with gold, and I'm giving some girl that I don't even know her name now. You know what I mean? These gifts, and taking money out of her, not even for drugs, just taking money out of her thing to do
candy.
other things. And doing other things in the neighborhood. I mean, I had deviant behaviors that I won't go too deep into, but they were deviant behaviors, you know, way before. And I don't want to say way before, because like I said, at a young age, Dad gave me alcohol. There were certain things I got into, you know, but until my addiction got full blown, and the phenomenon was there already, but the behavior of the disease and the characteristics were there, and I start to notice that more.
Yeah, in our literature it says that some of us believe the disease was present way before we ever picked up our first drug. I was actually talking to my girlfriend yesterday, and you know, we're talking about our kids, and you know, because kids, bro, they go up with emotional problems, you know, this and that, and like my kids, I know they do for sure. You know what I'm saying? It's like the difference between me and my kids, right, is that like I found an outlet at 12 years old. You know what I'm saying? So like depression, anxiety, like suicidal ideations, like I had those like prevalent in my life, right? Thinking like I don't belong here, I don't want to be here, right? And then like I get introduced to weed, and I found a cure for that. You know what I'm saying? And it shut all this down, right? It like mellowed everything inside of me like down, you know? And then so like I think the difference between my kids and me is that I found an outlet, and they don't have an outlet yet, right? And so like trying to figure that out with them, and gratefully they don't, bro. Thankfully they're not out there smoking weed. I mean they're 14 and 15, my girls, so who knows? But like you know, who knows, bro? Who knows what they're doing at school? Who knows, right? But my point is, right, is that I found something that fixed me
Right.
in an instant.
Yeah, temporarily.
Temporarily, absolutely, right? And you don't think about that when you're a kid. You're not like, oh, it's a temporary solution for a permanent problem. You're just like, I just need more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I just need more.
Even more, I'm grateful that you guys put me on this podcast, because now you're bringing up some other stuff. That's funny, because I don't ever like to admit that I had suicidal tendencies, that I felt awkward as I shared in the neighborhood, because I'm educated, speak different, speak proper, well-read, and a hood. You know what I mean? Gangsters make fun of you. Yeah. They make fun of you. So I got to fight to make proving myself, things like that.
And that's also, back then when gangsters were gangsters, bro.
Gangsters were gangsters back then, bro.
Yeah.
You're fighting. Straight up. You correct somebody playing basketball. I was remembering this one time in my childhood. You're playing basketball and you correct somebody if they said an improper word, and you're getting in a fight. You're getting in a fight over, it's crazy. But also that the more important part is I did have suicidal tendencies, and those are things that were coming up as well. My behaviors in itself, putting me in situations, even if I don't want to admit that I wanted to take my own life, putting myself in situations where getting out would be near impossible, were suicidal tendencies. And that temporary fix settled that down, where you stuff that, you forget that, you're going back in your childhood. And like I said, that goodbye letter to my old self brought up so many things. It's a very therapeutic instrument to bring up a lot of old issues.
Was that an assignment in treatment?
It was an assignment with my sponsor.
Okay.
And it was a good assignment to do. And I'm glad he made me do it, because it brought up. I'm in a coffee shop crying. You know what I mean? I'm like trying to hide from everybody. the baristas over there, I'm ducking down, writing my shit. You know what I mean? Had to go outside, hit the vape. You know what I mean? Real quick. But it's such. And I'm getting ahead of myself, because I'm sure you guys are going to ask me other questions on that. And this is why I love this program, and learning to look at yourself honestly, and how healthy, even the trauma, and learning how to forgive even my parents. They were doing the best that they were doing with what they got, and seeing that. I hated my dad for a long time. Hated him, And then when I was in prison, coming out, and he passed, and he passed, and I was in prison, I wanted to fight everybody. I'm so upset, but I hated him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I get out, go to treatment center. I go to his funeral, and I just break down. And in my family, you don't break down. And even my cousin, she was like, trying to wipe my tears. I'm like, no, let them just go. And that was one of those beginnings of me seeing something happen in me, that I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm still gonna be uncomfortable, but I'm not gonna be afraid with it.
So, did you go to school like your entire school in South Central? Did you move around a lot?
I moved around a lot, and that's a great question. I went to elementary. I went to in South Central. Then I got bussed out, and I got bussed out to John Burroughs, which is in a rich neighborhood. Okay. And that's where a lot of the character defects, and then where drugs became a little more, used, because I'm hanging out with rich kids. We got alcohol. You're ditching school, and they got alcohol cabinets and copious amounts of weed, and try it, and but then that's not the issue. The lying came. Because you're ashamed. You live in South Central. You're hanging out with these rich people. You lie about where you live. You lie about who you are, your family dynamics. All that's where I started seeing that too in my goodbye letter, and just doing step work. And I'm not going to put it all in the goodbye letter. Just doing step work of seeing, and God showing me. Right. My relationship with the God of my understanding is almost like a comedy show. When I act up, he doesn't, and I'm stubborn. I'll act up, but he's still showing me. I mean, most of you have talked to me. You'll see it. I'm fighting. I don't want to give up the self-will. I want to be a tyrant. I want to be, you know what I mean? I want to get you back still, those character defects. I want to tit for tat. Yo, you did this to me. You hurt me. I want to, but he's telling me, what's up? You already know. You've learned too much. So I was able to see during that time of, especially in junior high and in high school, I lied. And sometimes that lie saved me, because there was one time I lied. Someone was trying to find out where I lived, and I told them which way I went because they wanted to beat me up. They sent a girl to ask me, and I told them a lie, and they went that way, and I was going the other way. But not trying to justify the lie or anything like that.
Yeah.
But,
So all through school, it sounds like
you
didn't really felt that you fit in.
Oh.
In South Central, you were overly educated in their opinion. Mm-hmm. And then you get transferred over to this other neighborhood where it sounds like you didn't felt like you fit in either. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that pretty much all addicts have in common. Is like, it was all in my imagination for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can look at the differences visually, and I didn't fit into the picture. Like, I didn't look like everybody else, but I don't feel like nobody else looked at me like that. It was all in my mind,
Yeah, it's perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, that perspective was real.
Yeah.
Now, in recovery, that perspective is different. That it was like that when I walked in the rooms. When I walked in the rooms, everybody's taking my inventory. Everybody's looking at who's this. And some have been honest about that they were doing that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because I saw other people get love instantly. And I got love from you, Mike, instantly. I got love from Juan. I got love from Adam. I got love from certain people instantly. The older timer dudes were like this. Who's this dude coming? You know what I mean? Yeah. But a lot of that was perspective, and a lot of that was truth. Okay. A lot of that was my own perspective. Yeah. But here's the craziest part: perspective or truth. I realized it doesn't matter. I was there for me to get better. And for me, with the God of my understanding, things are different for me. I have to work a little bit harder on things. And when people got to know me, those people I can call those people anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think when you stick around for a while, bro, like you just see so many people come in and out. It's like, who do I really approach? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, like you want to extend your hand to the newcomer, all that stuff, right? But I heard about you before I even met you. Yeah. Who? What? Oh, it had to have been like Yoli and them. Yeah, it had to have been Yoli, because I remember they're like, yeah, just do Noble, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I met you. I want to say at the Tuesday night meeting, bro. Yeah, and then we just started chopping it up. And I was like, no, but that's a dope-ass name. Yeah.
Harmony.
I was like, hey, are we gonna interview Harmony? He was like, his name's Nova. I was like, I know. Well, I'm just saying. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know
because they were a little better. So they were a little more accepting because they saw the stages. When you first share, you don't know how to share.
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You want to appease people, character defect.
Right. Yeah.
You want to get the approval.
Sound good.
You want to sound good because you hear these guys who got the literature backed up, could do the 12 steps backwards, Swahili. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They could do it in Arabic, Farsi, Japanese, and you're like, dude, I don't sound like that. Yeah. You also, the disease makes you feel that your share is nothing. Mm-hmm. Who are you? Yeah. You know what I mean? But you want to feel great. The compensation of it, but as people were guiding me, and I love it that people were harsh with me more than they were with other people. They would tell me, no, dude, make it about you. Don't bring we into that, because that is a cop-out for me. I'm trying to associate, make it about me. Make I feel this way. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best tools that my first sponsor actually told me when I first shared, and I'm glad he did that. Yeah. I'm really glad he walked me through that, because it is about what I'm feeling. This program is really awesome because it is selfish. You got to be selfish about your recovery, but it's also a relationship. Personal recovery depends on NA unity.
Yeah.
And that's the craziest part. It's like this, you don't get that when you first hear it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't get the service work. You don't get how you should share. You don't get how working on yourself and the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is it's very important. You don't get it, and I still don't get it. I'm very selfish about my recovery. That self-centeredness has turned even worse. You could be talking to me about your stuff, and my girlfriend today, we got to get our toes done. I'm like this, look, I'm about to do a podcast. I'm about to get honest. That's cool. I'll call you at 4 when I'm done with everything else. This is where I'm focusing at. And I got to tell her almost all the time when she interrupts with some, food or something else. I'm like, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm worried about being as honest as possible, delivering a message, being led by God, speaking everywhere, wherever I speak.
Yeah. So when did your addiction start manifesting itself in using?
Ooh. That would be in my 20s when I went to college, maybe a little before 20s, like say 19. But when I went to college is where it got out of control. It got out of control. I started going to bars more, then that led to, it created this phenomenon in me that I realized, and I blamed it on genetics, I blamed it on me being bigger, but I had an insatiable appetite. Like everybody would want to stop, I'm not stopping with the drinking. I have to keep going. And only through step work, my relationship with God, being of service, all the little ties in, that I realized that I had an insatiable appetite all the time. And then it led to other things. But college is where it started. And then that led me to a party scene, which it got, then it started, the phenomenon took over.
So it started with alcohol.
It started with alcohol, weed too, and I want to say that because you look at weed, so let me backtrack. Weed, because growing up in South Central, I had the opportunity to sell things, sell drugs,
Right.
but didn't really use them. But so weed was common, but it wasn't. I didn't have to go search for it because I already had it. But since it was my stash that I'm selling, I don't really tap into it. That was the rule. You know what I mean? You just didn't do that. It was when I went to college that drinking, and then I'm going to my stash, so it was there too. It was alcohol, weed at the same time. Then it moved into harder things.
Did you complete college?
No, I owe a few more credits.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What were you going to school for?
I went to school for psych soc.
And are you going to finish that?
I am definitely planning to finish that.
Nice.
So psychosocial. So what kind of positions would you be able to hold for that? Like a psych tech?
Or counseling, things of that nature. Working for social services, but counseling is something that is calling me. I'm just not ready to deal with people on a big level like that, yet still working on myself. But that is what it's calling me to do, though. And a lot of people have told me that in this fellowship and outside the fellowship. But I just got like a few more credits.
Oh, yeah. I encourage you to do it, bro.
I am.
Working with people's harder than people think, you just sit at a computer and talk to people all day. No.
I give them shit all the time.
Yeah, that shit.
No, it's hard.
I tell them, get a real job, dude.
Let me tell you, that's why I avoid it.
Yeah, it's difficult, bro.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Especially like it's just different, bro. Like when you're in the rooms, like you get to choose who you speak life into. When you're a counselor, you don't get to choose. Obviously I'll spend more time with other people than other people, because if I see that you're not wanting this program, that doesn't mean that I care about you less. But if what I'm saying is falling on deaf ears, I mean, at some point I have to move on. You know what I'm saying? But it's difficult dealing with so many different personalities, and it'd be one thing like if it was like 1 day a week, 2 days a week, but by Thursday, bro, I'm like, I'm just emotionally, mentally, and spiritually just bankrupt, bro. Like I just I can't talk to anybody else, bro. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, I get it. That's one of the things when you know, because in my addiction, I had jobs and dealing with the people. So I made sure that the job I get, and it's because, let me tell you, principles before personalities, it's easy in the rooms. The real application is outside the rooms. Right. When you're at the store, when you're at your job, when you're dealing with people at church, when things like of that nature. And those who do know me, and they say this, and even my sponsor said it, and I got a little offended. I'm bold. I'm a little too bold. And I thought I was humble and not bold. You know what I mean? But he called it, and my girlfriend co-signed it. And I was like, damn. I asked another addict. They're like, yeah, you're pretty bold. I was like, but and that's one thing I have to work on with myself. I still want to be direct and honest. And I love what you said, because it's not a waste of time for me and my point and position. If someone doesn't want to get it, you can love them at a distance and hope they get it and plant the seed. But those who want and have the desire, because that's what it takes in this program that I'm seeing. That's why people go back out easily. It takes a desire. You can't lead someone to water and stuff their head in the water.
I wish we could.
I wish I could. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I want this on tape. Yeah. I would risk the whole world gets recovery if it was up to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because now you got accountability. You got people working on themselves. You know, I'd want to force it on the whole world. You know what I mean? Because with normies, with everyone outside, looking at yourself and seeing why you do the things you do is very important. We're with ourselves 24 hours a day, and we don't even know ourselves. We know our cell phones better than ourselves. That's crazy to me. You know what I mean? And I used to say that in my addiction. Now in recovery, I finally get what I was saying. Yeah. And that's the tip of the iceberg.
And it kind of goes back to what you're talking about, how like the self-deception you're talking about that you like discovered in your step work and in that letter that you wrote to yourself, right? Like there's that old saying, like, you can lie to everybody, but you can't lie to yourself. That's bullshit, bro. We lie to ourselves all the time.
I believed my lies more than other people did.
Yeah. You have to believe your lies in order for them to be good lies.
Yeah, you've already told it to yourself 5 times before you tell somebody else.
You know what's crazy, bro? When I got clean, I don't even remember what stories were real, which weren't. That's how much of a liar I was, bro. And I was that guy, I fucking hate cheaters, I hate liars, I hate thieves, and I was the biggest cheater, the biggest liar, and the biggest thief, bro. You know what I'm saying? But I hated them. I despised everybody who does those things. But I was that, bro. And I bullshit you not, bro. Some of the lies I told were just stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked, and it becomes your reality, bro. You know, self-deception is pretty hard to spot by yourself.
I was telling my sponsor that I would have to lie about my age. You know, younger girls would get at me, and I'd lie about my age so I just subtract or add 10 to the 72 to 18 just to make it, or do 20 years. And not only that, like you said, I would hate liars, but I was one of a master at lying. Yeah. I would have it replayed in my head, what I said to so-and-so, and it takes so much work.
Oh, yeah.
To do that. And that's why
you got to have a good memory, too.
You have to have a great memory. That's why my memory's shot now. It's probably filled with all that crap. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I can't remember anything because God's going like this. See, you had to strategize of what I told who, tell their circle of people the same thing. You have to know their circle, know this. I was a master chess player at lying. Like, okay, I got to tell them this, you know, and then I believed all my lies. I believed all of my lies. Yeah, and I'm so glad I'm free from that.
Right.
I'm so glad I'm free from that.
So not finishing college, that's obviously a sign of unmanageability. I'm sure it had to do with using. Was there some other things like after that times where you tried to quit or I mean, getting in trouble with the law is definitely a sign of unmanageability as well. Like, what were some of those things that came after college?
After college was when I got in trouble with the law.
Oh, okay.
Not to put me fully out there, I shared it with you guys, but that was one of those times, and that was in my addiction, you know, and I mean, other unmanageable, get in trouble with the law. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit later, but not only that, just not having a secure living situation, even when you have a job, even when you're making money on other aspects, just renting a room or sleeping on people's couches or things like that were very unmanageable. When I could have, but did not want the responsibility, which that lack of wanting the responsibility is one of the biggest things that were unmanageable that I see today, because I have a lot of responsibilities now.
Yeah.
And I love them. And my life is a little bit more manageable. There's still some unmanageable, situations I've gotten myself in, and that's what I love about this program, because it shows you without drugs, you could still be unmanageable, and you could still be powerless to your own obsessive thinking. At least I'm gonna speak for myself, me. I still have to walk through obsessive thinking. Let's throw the gym out there. You can go to the gym every day. Now, is that healthy for you? No. You got to have rest. They say the growth is in the rest. You got to eat. You got to do this. But then my brain is like, you got to go today. You got to go today.
Right.
If you don't, you're going to get fat. You're going to get fat.
Yeah.
Now, one of the most times I realized that I was powerless and unmanageable, not even prison, and this stuck with me. They say, remember the last time you used. Well, the last time I used was in prison. That's not what got me. Was the spiritual degradation of driving home. This is at the time when I'm dealing. But I leave my, at the spot, right? Take a little bit, which was always idiotic for me, right?
Yeah. Well, you gotta have some for you.
But it's idiotic because you take a little. You're not gonna, my partner used to say, you might as well take this because you're gonna come back.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Driving home, it's late, obviously, to the mother of my child and my daughter who are asleep. I'm like, one more.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
One more.
Yep.
That's it. Driving on the freeway. One more. That's it. One more. Bag's gone. I have to go home and pretend I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Which is it's just insanity.
Heart's racing.
Heart's racing.
Laying down. Try to stay
Your eyes are
still.
closed. They're flipping. You got images flipping.
Yeah. Yeah. Every minute
Daughter's
seems like
right
an hour,
there.
dude.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I do too.
Yeah.
I remember
And
pretending like I was asleep.
And
high.
I used to think, this is when I shared this with my first sponsor, I used to think that's what made him relapse when I shared that with him. Because that's one other time. Another time, I'm looking at a picture of my daughter, the mother of my child, and me in the hospital when she's born. And I blow up the picture on me. Not on my daughter, not on the mother of my child, but on me, because I knew I was getting sloppy at that time and stuff was over my nose. And I blew it up and was like this. Yep, I knew it. You know what I mean? Blew it up and was like, man. So those are those times that I hold dear that really showed me how powerless I was, powerless I am to the disease, gaining a little more power, and how my life was unmanageable.
So what was your primary drug of use?
My primary drug of use was cocaine, because I had an excess of it. Because
Regular cocaine?
Yes, not crack.
Okay.
Cocaine snorted, coke powder.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Never freebase?
Never. What is freebase?
Crack.
Before I say no.
No. You put it. I don't want to get too graphic. You put it on foil, a little baking soda, a little water.
Oh yeah, crack.
Dry it up.
Yeah, that's crack.
Quick crack. We called it.
Quick crack.
Yeah,
crack.
That's crack.
Yeah.
That's crack, bro.
I would say I was smoking cocaine.
Okay, whatever. This is how I smoke, bro. Cocaine. I had a blunt of weed, sprinkled powdered cocaine, which is
Crack.
powder cocaine on the weed, which is a waste of cocaine. Let me tell you that in itself. But when you had copious amounts, you do stupid things. You know what I mean? Cocaine is a very expensive.
It's a hell of a drug.
It's a hell of a drug, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
But when I got to a higher echelon of dealing with it didn't start like that. I started at a small, then I started taking advantage of friends, collecting, then going to a certain person
with all the money. Yeah,
we all did more. Yeah. And then getting to a higher echelon, and then, so that was my main drug. But I did almost every drug there is.
You think that's the one that brought you to your knees, though?
That's the one that the other ones I could be without for a while, but that's the one I always had on me. I always had 3 drugs on me: alcohol, weed, and cocaine. Always. I always had a trifecta of something.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that. You always had to mix them.
I always, and I'm not giving all the details. I mean, I'm burnt because there was every weekend I partied off acid with cocaine, mountains of cocaine on the table, acid. Always. So which that's another waste if you really look at it. It's a waste. You're wasting something. Yeah. The cocaine ain't doing nothing when you're on acid. Let me tell you that right now. Acid's taking over.
Yeah.
Period.
All right. So in prison was the last time you used.
Yeah.
And what was it in prison?
It was meth.
Oh, okay.
So you dabbled in meth a little bit too.
I dabbled in meth a little bit too.
At the end, was it like regular, like daily, or just when you could get it?
That's a good question. It was not regular, but it was offered regularly. We'll say it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I was having a little spiritual battle. Then that's when I started realizing jail and prison was when I realized I had a problem. Because I didn't go in there on a drug charge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I realized I was an addict, not because of H&I panels or NA. I heard of NA and AA, and different sects, but not through jail and prison, but the behavior, because I was doing certain things, scriptural work, working out, dabbling in drugs. And let me tell you, when you're reading scriptures on meth, bro, let me tell you, you see the little contradictions, and that's where.
You mean it doesn't make them come alive?
It makes them
for me.
Yeah, it did for me too. It made them come for life. It brought some life. It brought some. It also lets you know when you can't work out the next day or other disciplines, other unmanageabilities come up. In prison and jail, it's rare. You're either doing drugs and you're doing it the whole time, and it's rare to stop. So people would look at me crazy. I'm like, no, I'm good. Because I would see how it would take me away from my disciplines.
The only part of the Bible I read when I was high was Revelations.
That's the craziest part you can read, bro.
That's why I read it, bro, because I wanted to figure out what the end looked like. Because I was in the conspiracy theory.
You're like, yeah, that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's a crazy, that and the book of Job is the craziest to read.
Yeah. So when did you made your decision to quit using in there?
I made my decision, but I mean, also in there, let me be honest on this podcast. That's when Spice was so easy to come through, and Spice is another idiocy drug in my opinion. No offense to anybody.
K2?
But I am, the K2, exactly.
Yeah. I have a friend that's in the feds, and he was trying to get me to send that.
Yeah. You can send it through paperwork. They spray it down, all that. I had all that done.
That was happening then with the batteries and all that. I mean, I don't know how long it's been.
With the battery. Damn, you knew a lot there with the wires and stuff, and smoking on the strip, or making blunt wraps out of coffee, put it on the toilet paper, dry it on the, all that, bro. I mean, I was doing all that, and since politics were a little lighter, people I knew of different races, we could congregate and come up with stuff like that, and just
when it comes to drugs, everything's all right,
dude. Yeah, that's funny you said that.
Yeah,
because I do want to mention that in jail in a gang dorm in L.A. County, dorm 821. When the heroin came in, never did heroin before. Used to blame alcohol was my gateway drug to everything.
Yeah,
I'm on a Southsider's bed doing with a calditos laying back. That's one of the first times and that's the worst feeling because I'm a go-getter. I like to move and I'm out for the whole day. I'm like, this is out for me.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too is when the drugs are gone, the energy shifts too.
Yeah.
Then everything gets tense, bro.
It gets tense. But when they're there,
then politics are back in effect.
Dude, when they're there, everybody's friends.
Yeah.
And we almost got into some stuff before they got there.
Yeah, and then it's here now.
Yeah, now it's here. We're all like I'm saying, this is out. From my first time going to jail to my next time going to jail was it was a lot different.
Yeah.
It was a lot different.
And even out here, bro. Like you could have robbed somebody, but if you got it, they're cool with you again.
Yeah.
Just to get high that one time.
Yeah. It's bananas. It's bananas. The
We compromise our beliefs.
Yeah.
To get one more, dude.
Yeah.
I've hung out with people that I couldn't stand.
Oh yeah.
Just to get loaded,
Yeah.
I still do that today.
Just hang out with people you can't stand.
Yeah, you.
I know. Can't fucking stand you either, dude. Fuck.
But prison was where I noticed I had a problem.
And you decided in there that you weren't going to use again?
Well, I didn't decide. I mean, to my last day, I still did something. Somebody had some weed. I hit that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I had a lot of the character defects that I look back at, like people pleasing, or, and stuff like that. You're gonna hit it, but God is what showed me in there, because when the lady asked when I leave, and I share this a lot at a lot of places, I could have lied, went back to same lifestyle, didn't parole out here in San Bernardino, didn't go to a treatment center. But when she asked me, do you have a drug problem? I was prompted. And let's say at that time, I mean, it was God, but I'm still fighting it. I was prompted by something, I like to say, because of my denial, but it was God to tell her the truth, and she sent me out here to San Bernardino to a treatment center.
When you said that, when it came out of your mouth, did you wonder where that came from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it just blurted out.
Yeah.
Because my first thing, I'm a liar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a liar, dude. Like, what? What are you telling this lady?
Yeah.
Don't be saying that out loud. I don't have a drug charge. She first for her asking the question
is weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, for sure.
And which was God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Because she didn't ask the person before me. She didn't ask the other people, but she said, do you have a drug? And I said, boom, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And so was that your first time coming to San Bernardino?
Well, I've come to San Bernardino for business with drugs several times. But this is my first time living in San Bernardino and being out here in San Bernardino.
Was that your first time in treatment?
This is my first time in treatment. Yes.
What was that like?
Well, when you go through county jail, prison, you're moved a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So, I wasn't uncomfortable about. I've lived in dorms. I wasn't nervous about that at all. Mm-hmm. But let me rewind a little bit. It's funny, like I said earlier, God makes me have to work. So the lady sets up my treatment. My family calls and makes sure I'm there. They're not picking up. They don't have me in their system. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was the craziest thing. And at that time, I was so more connected with God that everything was okay. I wasn't nervous, It's funny, like now years later, I've had spiritual relapse. I'm a little disconnected, fighting back for that connection. But then I was like, what is it's going to work out. Worked out. Treatment has been amazing for me. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on your question, but treatment has been amazing.
No.
Yeah, I went to Gibson House, and it's been amazing. I had the worst counselor, I believe, in the beginning, and he was the best one for me. Everybody was getting their license and Social Security cards. I had to get all that and struggle later, but he worked on spiritual principles. When I got tested, because I'm thinking I've never been to treatment, they're only going to test me for my major drug, right? I don't know shit. I don't know that. You know what I mean? I get popped for weed. Because my boy picks me up from prison, and he's like, hit this. And let me tell you, bro, it's a whole different, ball game from prison weed to the weed that's out here. So I'm comatose like the whole drive from Corcoran to San Bernardino, bro. That's like a drive, you know what I mean? And even when he offered me more, I'm like, I'm straight, bro. I'm so good, bro. You know what I mean? And he was laughing while I'm coughing. So just to bring that up, because my counselor, who was awesome, made me write about that.
Yeah.
And it was good because it shows you that, you know, some people think weed and alcohol are harmless.
No.
Yeah.
So he makes me write about that. And I write about the times I've abused the heck out of weed. Just going to the store, take 3 dabs, unpack my cigarettes. This is crazy behavior. Unpack your cigarettes, pack it with weed, put a tip of wax on there, and take the steezy pen just to the store like you're going to get lost or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The dabs were cool. You take 2, if you know weed, you take a couple dabs, you're good.
Yeah.
You don't have to do nothing else. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I had to write that down and look at that. And I was like, damn, I abuse anything I touch.
Yeah.
That's not innocuous either. That's not harmless either.
Yeah.
You know, so I had a great counselor who made me write on the 3 relapses before relapses. So he gave me a great foundation to look at myself before doing step work, before every day trying to turn my life and will to the care of God.
And the 3 relapses, you're not talking about actual relapses,
No,
right?
behavioral, spiritual,
Yeah.
and mental relapse, which
Before the physical.
is awesome
Yeah.
to look at that. Like
Yeah.
he gave me one of the greatest tools, because you can see behaviors of why people relapse. It doesn't just go, bam, let me get drugs.
It's plain as day, bro.
It's plain as day.
Yeah.
The reservations. I saw it when I got out of treatment, and they sent me to sober living, and I have
Yeah.
to get my ID and my social security now.
Yeah.
And I'm upset that the DMV didn't go my way and social security office didn't go my way, which is crazy to ever, you know, but I'm still an
You're
addict.
mad at them 'cause you don't have
I'm
it.
mad at them, you know what I mean? That nothing's going my way. I see a liquor store across the street, and I was like, I can have 1 drink, and nobody would know.
Oh, you're talking about the Social Security office.
Yeah, right over there. And I 1 drink. Go to sober living, they'll never know. I won't get popped for that, right?
Yeah.
And the tools and coping skills that they gave me with my connection with God replayed a tape of where that 1 drink would take me, where I'm going to go next, what I'm going to need next. I'm going to need the trifecta.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to need the trifecta. It's simple as that. And then I'm going to have the spiritual, I'm going to be ashamed. I'm going to have the spiritual degradation. I'm not going to call my family. I don't know anybody in San Bernardino. I'm going to be under a
How am I going to
bridge.
get back to
I'm
LA?
gonna be under,
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to be around them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be running and replay that. I look like a crazy person on Baseline and Waterman, looking at my phone, like you know what I mean? Because I was really replaying that tape. So, treatment was awesome because it also started that beginning of taking suggestions, being open, because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if I was stubborn about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I didn't follow their suggestions, go to sober living, contact Geo, contact Lighthouse, which helped me get an apartment before my 2 years just being out of prison. You know, go to school, get a job. You know, so I was open to take these suggestions, which I was thankful that the God of my understanding humbled me in those beginning parts. You know,
One thing about that I noticed about you and watching you go through all these things is I noticed that like you were never in a hurry for the next thing. You were just like, I'm just here right now, dude. I don't know what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right here in Gibson House, and I'm in the sober living, and then you were like, you whispered a little bit like I might get a place, and you didn't say it too loud, and you were cool where you were at, and then you got the place, bro, and like you were just cool right where you were at. Like God has me right where I'm supposed to be right now, and I'm just gonna keep stepping, dude. Keep taking steps forward. You know.
You know what I love, and I'm sorry I cut people off a lot, so you guys could slow me down, because you guys spark something, and it's awesome you noticed that.
Yeah.
Because the spiritual relapse happened when I didn't stay present and became ungrateful.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. Like in the beginning of my recovery, I was so present and grateful. I wasn't in the future. I wasn't judging myself by the past. I just right where I'm at.
We're just
and
right at this
loving it.
meeting, bro. I got to make this coffee. That's it, bro.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
And when I saw that in my spiritual relapse, and I'm so thankful and grateful you brought that up, I had to backtrack that because I was starting to. Now I don't have this compared to what I had here. When you start going to that, especially judging, it's not bad to look at the future, but when you bring in that judgment of what you had from the past, or the shame, or where you think you should be, or all that stuff, that's I started becoming ungrateful. And that ungratitude, dude, is a killer for me. It happened my first year. It happens every time around Christmas, bro.
Yeah.
Every
Talk
time,
about
and
it.
I got to see that pattern. First Christmas, God sat me down, and I don't sit down for nothing, bro. He sat me comatose, sick. I couldn't get out of bed, didn't go to church, I had to counsel one in the meeting, couldn't do anything. And he made me reflect on that, of what I should be grateful of, laying in the bed. And this last time it happened again, and this time worse. Disease came at me hard. I really wanted to stay in self-will and be a tyrant, and he had to humble me. And this time was way worse, because I really was like Adam shared earlier, in tears, no long prayer, no beautiful prayer. I need your help.
Yeah.
I need your help.
Yeah.
Send me your messengers. And tears. I want to cry. I want to tear up right now, because it was one of the most broken times. And he sent me messages. I'm asking for help. I got my sponsor, got therapy. I was like this, whatever is going to help me, because I can't keep doing this. This is what I love about this program. When I need help, I can have people on standby.
Yeah.
Keep your phone on. Now, am I perfect at that? Of course not. This is not a process. This is a process, it's not perfection. But I see that I can get better at it. I have a gauge that I can put more. I have a lot of help in this fellowship, but I have a struggle with the disease that wants to do everything by itself. You know what I mean? He thinks that's a man, has that definition. That's strong. But more and more I'm realizing, with releasing it and being humble, that's the strength. That's the strength.
And so now, hopefully, you can see it coming before it gets there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I was just thinking about is, like, you said that you wish you could force recovery on everybody, and so do I. Even people who don't use drugs.
Yeah.
Everybody can benefit from it. But one thing that I've done, and exercise that I've done after a sticky situation, or a situation where, like, I acted out or whatever, and doing some writing on that, and just kind of like taking a step back and looking at it for what it is, any given situation. You learn so much from that. And that's a part of the program. It's like, on the other side of the hard times, like taking a look back at that and trying to figure out, like, what I could have done differently, if anything.
Yeah.
And just being grateful for coming out of it clean,
That's the beauty.
Yeah. 100%.
I always say it, and I share this.
Even that small exercise for a normal person.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I'm gonna take a look at that from the other side of it, or take a step back and take a look at that, and see how I could just be a little bit better, just a little bit. Never perfect, but just a little bit better.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty about. I'm starting to see the beauty. I shared that once in relationships. They suck.
Yeah.
They'll show you the emotions suck. Dealing with them sucks.
Yeah.
I want that recorded.
Yeah.
But the beauty is, you got to look at yourself. Things are shown to yourself, just like those other times. And it's funny, because I equate things to working out. You can't get buff by sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
You need resistance.
Yeah.
And that resistance shows you so much beauty and insight and growth. Like you just said something earlier, you're able to see the patterns that are coming up the next time to avoid that.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty I'm seeing in the weakness of looking at the insecurities that I don't want to admit, sharing that with other men, and them saying, me too. You just made me feel better about, I don't like admitting I want to be a tyrant and force recovery on anybody. That's not recovery, you know what I mean? Yeah. And when you said that, it makes, the me too makes you feel a little better, because there's so much growth when you can look at yourself. Like I said earlier, we're with ourselves 24 hours a day and don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
And just hitting the tip of the iceberg. And that's insane to me, but it checks out because we're growing. We have to, especially as addicts, for me, who's stuffed so much denial and so many things down and things are coming up. It's a beauty. Even looking at my family dynamic, even admitting my dad was abusive and beat my mom, and that's hard to admit.
Yeah.
You don't want to admit none of that.
Yeah.
And how that affects you, and not being able to express that or having an outlet, like Adam says. It's good, and it's great that fathers in recovery. It's so awesome. You know what I mean? Because we can give them a different outlet and sit down and talk to them and really let them express themselves and have an understanding instead of, our parents who in initial stages, not talking about my parents in initial, didn't do that.
Yeah.
So you have to get an outlet somewhere else.
Yeah. Just that small thing of being willing to listen and validating their opinion, even if it's irrational. Because they're kids, right?
Yeah.
Like what they think may be completely wrong, but just listening makes a big difference. One thing you said about the equating it to the gym. Have you heard that about the analogies relating to the gym and meetings?
No.
No. So like if you go to the gym and you just walk around the gym and you don't get on any of the machines and do the work, you're never going to get in shape, right? Yeah. So going to the meetings and just going there to hang out. Yeah. You're never going to get spiritually fit. No. You got to get on the machines. You got to do the work.
You got to do. This is a problem. This is a program of work. I was reading. I love the preface of the Step Working Guide, and they had it writing at first, and then through deliberation they had to put working because some people didn't write and things like that.
Yeah.
And which leads me to my other thing. You can write your steps out. You can do all that.
Yeah.
It's really the application.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I love our conversations.
Yep.
Because it shows that's the beauty. It shows the application. How am I applying step one?
Right.
See, on one of you guys' podcasts, you were bringing up, how the maintenance is in 10 and 11. But really the maintenance is through all of them for me as a newcomer. You're seeing the unmanageability even now without drugs.
Yeah.
You're seeing how, you need somebody to save you in the insanity. Why it's better to give your life and your will. Character defects are shown in other little things in the unmanaged in one. And so, you know what I mean? You see your character defects in the other ones, I mean, it's a constant applying. And I love my sponsor because my sponsor has been seeing that I see that more. He said that's the key. Keep applying what you're seeing, we can write it all day. We can journal all day, dude.
We could share about it.
We could share about it. Yeah. We can get up and make it look good, bro.
Yeah.
But I want to hear what was the problem in your share. I mean, people could share and I listen to people share. But what I want to hear is the problem, how you're applying the spiritual principles to all the situations. I mean, because I can freak out by myself. Yeah. My behaviors are crazy. No drugs.
Yeah.
By myself in my house, dude. I live by myself, right? Or did. Now I got a roommate. But when I did, I'm sure neighbors thought there were two people in my house because I would lose it sometimes by myself.
Yeah. So I want to. And also, it's experience with applying those things, right? Because. Like Frank, right? He always talks about. He says like spiritual principles don't make you perfect, right? They make you feel guilty when you act out on character defects and shortcomings, right? And so, like for me, there's another saying that my sponsor always talks about, Willie, where he says like and it comes from pieces of our stuff, right? And so like he says like when the pain of remaining the same is greater than the fear of change, you will surely let go. And it's like for me, I will bleed a character defect out. I will
beat it like a dead horse.
Beat it, bro. I will fucking be stuck in it. I wouldn't even ask for its removal because it's so comfortable and to the point where I'm like, I can't fucking, just like getting loaded. I had to get to a point like I can't fucking do this anymore. There has to be another way, right? And I'll do that with character defects. I will bleed it until there's nothing left, and then I'm like, all right, like something has to change here, right? But it's only when the pain is grave enough. And like a lot of times, we think we're saving people because you need to stop behaving. Like my sponsor, bro, never. No, there has been a few times. It's funny because in early recovery, he's never told me like I had to do this or you can't do this. He's never told me that. I would say over the last year is the only time he's ever told me that, and he's told me it twice. You cannot do this, right? I swear, bro. And I'm gonna tell you, because he's never told me that I can't do something, right? Like I took him seriously. Like he's right. I can't do this, right? I cannot behave this way. I cannot like end this. I cannot do this, right? And so like my point is though is that he always allowed me to have my own experience, right? And I think that like is important because everything that I am today is not just from all my wins, right? My wins don't even really teach me that much, except I could do something. It's the losses, bro. It's the bad behaviors that taught me. It's the bad relationships. It's the bad conversations. It's the bad days. It's all those things, bro, right? That taught me. Like, I'll give you an example, bro. I was gambling for a while. I have like 3 months clean, something like that, from gambling, bro, right? And
you
like,
should know your clean date on that, dude.
But you know what? It's not as important as May 6th. Anyway,
if you don't know it, you might change it, bro.
Maybe. I'm not. Hey, look it's just for today, bro. I put it out for today. You know, I ain't gonna lie, bro. But look at like it had to get to a point, right? Like, and I'm gonna be a little honest, right? Where I spent a few $100, and I didn't realize that I spent a few $100 until I went and looked at my bank account, and I was like $10, $20, $10. I was like, and I added it up, bro, and I was like, bro, there was this one day where I got in this really impulsive, I have to win, and bro, for an hour I sat there, $10, just like my dope, bro, just like my dope, right? That one more you're talking about, right? Like I remember going to a dope spot, bro, with $100, $200, right? I just want a 20, bro. I just want a bowl. Yeah. I just want a bowl. That's it, because that's all I'm gonna use. And then you get home, you smoke that bowl, and then you're right back. And you're like, just one more bowl. That's it, right? Like convincing myself that I have control, right? But the thing is that I had to beat gambling, right? I had to bleed it until I got to a place where I was like, what the fuck am I doing, bro? Like, what am I doing, bro? Because I could justify, minimize. I did all that, bro. And Mike was the first person I got real honest with, bro. I remember calling him that day, like, bro, like, I'm fucking broken, bro. I'm spiritually hurt right now. Like he told me he felt like he was using. I did. I literally felt like I was using, bro, because seeing it was looking at my bank account, and I purposely would not look on my bank account after I would do little binges, just so I didn't have to fucking relive it. And the first time I did it, I was like, what the fuck did I do, bro? Now, did I spend my rent money? No. Did I spend and that's my justification though. Did I spend my bill money? No. But I spend my spending money. Like I had no money for gas. I had no money for nicotine. I had no money for, you know what I'm saying? And so like now I had to do Uber Eats just to survive. And then I started doing Uber Eats. I don't mean to fucking talk about all this, but look, I'm going to be honest, right? I'll do Uber Eats, bro. I make $30 in a day because I'm only doing it before work and after work, right? And then that $30 is going to the fucking gambling, because in my head, I'm like, if I could turn this to $300, I don't have to do Uber Eats for the rest of the week, right? and I did that for 3 days after gambling all that money. And then it's like, I got to a point where I was like, I think I called you and told you I'm done. Yeah. It's over. Yeah. Like I am not I don't give a fuck. I will Uber Eats every day just to make sure I have $20, $30 in a fucking bank account so I can put some gas in, have a little bit of fucking spending money, like whatever, right? But my point of that whole thing is, like, for me, there's like this process of pain, right, that I have to go through, like toxic relationships, being a cheater, being a liar, right? Even in recovery, being an abusive person, bro, right? And the beautiful thing about the program, right, is it teaches us sometimes we're the problem. And I think that's what the rest of the world is missing, right? Like they throw these words around like narcissistic, you're this, you're that. Like, where's the accountability? If you're dating 3 narcissistic people back to back, you're the fucking problem. I just got done talking to a sponsor about this, bro. I said, your last 3 relationships didn't last 90 days. I said, you know who the common fucking denominator is at? You. You need to take a look at who you're picking to be in your life, whether you're the problem or not. There's a problem there, bro.
Yeah.
Right? And the rest of the world
Yeah.
doesn't know how to admit that. And so you said something, right, about weakness. We find strength in our weakness, bro.
Yeah.
When I could be honest about who I am and what I'm going through, bro, I find strength in that, bro, because secrets grow in the dark. And it doesn't matter what secrets they are, bro. Secrets will grow in the dark, bro.
And they die in the light of exposure.
The gambling. I kept that shit a secret and I minimized it. Even when I talked to Mike about it, I was like, I won $400. I won $600-700 a few times. You know what I'm saying? $500, $300, right? And so those are those good moments, and I would express those. But when I lost 150 that day, like I wouldn't tell that with anybody. I'll be fine. I don't really.
I'll make it back.
I'll make it. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I have to be like. I used to hate the fact that I was an addict. My whole life, even in early recovery, I hated it, bro. Now I'm really grateful because I have a program, bro, that teaches me to look inward, right? And I have a disease that is super critical, right? That will make me be like, well, look it, bro, you got 11 years clean. Why are you behaving this way? Like you ain't really working a program, bro. But working a program, right? Like living a program, right? It doesn't mean that everything's always going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that your behaviors are always going to be perfect. Doesn't mean you're always going to feel fucking great. Doesn't mean any of that. What it means is that, like what Mike's talking about, is I have an opportunity to like reevaluate everything I'm doing. I have an opportunity to reevaluate my attitudes, my behaviors, and my conversations, right? The ABCs, one of our predecessors used to talk about that a long time ago, right? But I have an opportunity to evaluate that and what am I missing here? What am I not doing, right? And I am with this because I'm a fucking winded motherfucker.
Oh, that's funny because my girlfriend says that about me. No, but I love it.
My girlfriend says it about me too.
Yeah, but and I used to hate it.
I called Mike yesterday about some things I got going on at home, right? And I know one of the questions was like, what's your prayer life been like this week? I'm like, non-existent. What's your eating been like this week? Horrible, right? Because all that stuff plays in a factor of who I am, bro. If I'm eating horrible, I'm going to feel horrible. And I didn't realize how horrible I felt until I stopped eating horrible. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm not staying in a conscious contact with God, right, then there's this spiritual disconnect. Then it becomes discontent. And then next thing you know, like I'm off in the deep end with my rabid thoughts, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happened. And so having people to call and be honest with, because there's a few people, bro, where I'm just honest with, bro. That's one's Mike, one's Juan, one's my sponsor, obviously. You know what I'm saying? And there's a few other people, you know what I'm saying, where I'm just like, this is where I'm at, because there's no judgment. Right? Because my head will tell me, bro, like, you can't call Mike. Like, especially early in our relationship, I'm like, I can't call Mike. Like, I'm his, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm supposed to be his predecessor. I'm supposed to be someone like before him. I'm supposed to be like this and that. Like, what if I call him and tell him how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, then he's not gonna think I'm perfect and he's not gonna want what I have. And then, but the truth is, bro, like, that's an attraction in itself. Like, seeing my sponsor like sick in the head still, like, cool. Like, you're sick in the head, but you operate in a way where you're not harming everybody around you. So like, let me get some information from you, because I know that you're not perfect. So when I come to you with my bullshit, you're gonna be like, oh, don't even trip. I'm the same way, or you know. So the imperfectness is what I need around the people around me. I just need people to be honest. Tell me where you're at, bro. Tell me what's going on. And it makes me more comfortable to tell you what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. It summed up what we're all talking about, just beauty. And from what I studied, the power of God in me is shown through my weakness. And we see it in recovery. Our experience, even our drug use, the degradation, all the stuff we went through helps another addict. When you share, I shared last night at another fellowship that they asked me, and so many people walk up when you just share honestly about the pain. And I love what you said. I'm the same way. I'm stubborn. That spiritual relapse, and I go to Mike too. He had to hear it all Magna. He was probably sick of it. Him and Will. They were like, I know you're not. That's my disease. You're sick of it. But I'm I need help, you know, and there's a ping pong with me. Self-will, God will. Self-will, God. I want to stay over here, but I had to bleed it out. It took me 3 months in a tyrannical, self-willed, everyone can get it like COVID mentality, bro. Who wants it? You know what I mean? And I thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, man.
For dealing with me in that stage, because I was thinking about this. That was a different stage you've had to deal with me, and see me fight.
That's an opportunity for me.
And I see the beauty
It's
in it,
not.
because I was fighting with God then, going like this. I bet I was being deathly honest, huh? I was like this. I know what he wants. I don't want to do it. I know he's pulling me over here, but I do not want to do it. He's sending me 1,000 messages, Mike, everybody talking to me, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
I'm telling Mike this at the Magna. He's telling it. I'm so done.
Yeah.
But there's so much beauty even to go through that, and just the strength of my faith now. The fact that I pray more, I've prayed more today than I have done in weeks at that time. The earnest in my prayers, the earnest in my studying. There was just for the day, during the week, act as if, or fake it till you make it. And I hate that statement, right? But it saved my life. Still reading scripture, still doing, even though I don't want to, still praying, even though I don't want to, still showing up, even though I don't want to, still being of service, even though I don't want to, and it's chipping away at my self-centeredness, it's chipping away at my self-will, and I hate that. It's so funny, I used to hate it. Now I got to have some respect for it and see it in a different light, and even that growth, and it's so much beauty. I mean, there's so much beauty in the pain and what we go through. And I'm starting to see that more and more. And it takes sharing. It takes being of service, being outside yourself, to see a desperate newcomer. I gave a chip who came up to me after the lead, and it was awesome, because now the meeting's ending. And she blurts out and just shares, it's about the leader's like, that's it for today. And she's like, boom, I don't know what to do with myself. And just the desperation, it gives us so much hope from that someone is crying for help, because I could feel that in my spiritual relapse. Like I said, that prayer was so earnest. I didn't go into all the formalities. I need your help. I am willing. I am now obedient. I'm willing to do what you need. I'm going to listen. Yeah. I'm sorry. It wasn't forgive me for my sins. It was like this. I'm sorry. Yeah. I should have been listening. I'm going to take all the suggestions, and I'm going, because of that pain and that self-inflicted pain. Yep. I put myself that and felt it. I can't. See, with this program, you can't unsee what you've seen, or what you learn. I can't do that. Even though I want to be in denial. But I saw the pain starting there. I saw where it was going to go. You're not going to be happy being like that, and you know it. But you need to bleed it out, like you said, Adam, and I had to bleed it out.
So do I always believe.
I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that with everything, because I'm like that. I'll bleed it out. And I was so much better in the earlier stages of my recovery. And as I study, the disease is studying with me. Yeah. As I get stronger, as my sponsor says, with my spirit, Satan comes at me harder. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just true. Am I getting better? Yes. Do I make mistakes? Yes. Do I love those mistakes more? Yes, because they give you insight. One of the mistakes, I'm trying to learn how to shut the fuck up more. And I shared that. Yeah. Because I feel something at that moment doesn't mean dump that on your girlfriend, dump that on whoever you're feeling immediately. It's not fair. I relapsed on that. Did it again, but I love that there was a working in me to step back. It gets better when you work on it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not the same, because before I'm dumping. You did this, you did this, you did this. Dancing around that, I feel hurt. My insecurities came up. I'm afraid of losing you. I'm jealous. I know you look at me like this, but let me show you how I see myself. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You may think I think, and all the glamour that you see, but let me show you what I see. And the beauty is now I appreciate myself a little more. I can look in the mirror and do the assignment that my sponsor tells me and tell myself that I love myself, that I am proud. You know, you don't want to say that you are a miracle. You know, I could tell you're a miracle, you're a miracle. I could tell everybody they're a miracle.
Right.
Somebody told me, Mike at Magna, you're a miracle too. You can see the look on my face. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to accept it
Yeah.
because of my own view of myself, you know, that is still taken from my drug use and other things and the shame that I've done and all of that. And it's time to work. It's time for me to work past that and understand that and take a look at that and see the beauty in it too.
Yeah.
You know? So well said, Adam. Well said, Mike. I love it. You guys, and this is why I love my predecessors. They sum up what you're saying so beautifully. You know what I mean? You're like this because I'm still burnt, bro. I jumble stuff up, and the way you guys summed it both up was just that. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. There's so much beauty in the pain. Just like let's go back to working out. It's crazy to put yourself through self-inflicted pain. I wake up like I got hit by a car some days, bro.
Yeah.
Sore.
Yeah.
Agony on my face.
Yeah.
But you
Feel
know what
me?
that brings.
And you did it to yourself.
Right.
But there's something beautiful that comes out of that,
Yeah. 100%.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Noble. You got any other questions, Adam?
Not just like so we know what it was like fucked up. What's your life like now, bro?
Oh, that's a great question. My life now is, especially after my spiritual relapse and getting back connected with God, is so beautiful. Being on this podcast, just everything leading up to, it's not about the glamour, and stuff like that, but. My life is getting better because of this program. I show up, I suit up, which has gotten me to a higher position at my job, a raise. When I felt like, in my head I wasn't appreciated, but seeing what that is, the beauty part of my life, of why it's so beautiful, is always looking at myself and always working. The God of my understanding does not let me not work. He's going to throw character defects at me. Those who talk to me have to hear mostly recovery all the time. In my car, that's what we're talking about. We're walking, and that's a beautiful thing. But if we're going to talk about the glamour, just being out of prison 2 years and 3 days, own apartment, car, job, that really respects my opinion, and being humble and surrendering, which is the most beautiful gift, to really need help and to call on people when I need help, and able to see those character defects that I have that impede me, that the disease will make you can do this by yourself. Like you were saying, I'm over here at this level, I've survived this, I'm this, whatever, you know what I mean? But to let all that go and have the blinders gone and really ask for help was the most beautiful gift for me, who was a control freak, self-centered, isolated, can't do that. That's a workout in itself, and seeing the beauty in that. Not see, we see that as a weakness, but that weakness is beautiful. There's so much beauty to surrender to that, and it took me a while. It took me a while, but my life and looking at myself is so beautiful. My relationship with my daughter is amazing. Like I shared with you guys before the podcast, it's amazing. We text each other, war texts. I love you more. No, I love you more. I was like, no, you know what I mean? The relationship with the mother of my child, beautiful. So honest. That's the craziest thing. She was never honest with me before. We ate dinner, and she ordered a drink that used to be my favorite drink too, old fashioned, sitting in front of me. She's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you know what I mean? But no desire, but the way we talk, the way we co-parent, it is amazing, and that's because of me surrendering to God and surrendering to this program. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that allowed me to get a new vehicle where I could take pressure off of her. She was meeting me halfway to see my daughter. You know what I mean? She had to learn when I went to prison. It's hard to raise a little Noble. You know what I mean? It's a little hard. You know, she got that, and she was like, I'm not gonna cut you out of the life, and that right there is beautiful. One of the most beautiful things, because of the nature of my case. Her family should hate me.
Yeah.
And going over Christmas and them sitting me in there and feeding me and being normal around me like nothing happened. And I didn't say I'm sorry. I totally am tired of saying I'm sorry. Because a lot of times that's from people pleasing or some other stuff, or I know we got to cut it short, but I love living amends, like living the program and applying it. And I did tell them I am so grateful that you'll let me spend time with my daughter and sit with you guys. Right. I don't need to say, oh, I'm sorry for what I did or this and that. You know what I mean? I don't need to do that. And I love that God incited that in me. That don't do all that. You've done that 1,000 times to everybody. I love the relationship that I have with people in the fellowship, and I love the new relationship I'm getting with my family.
Hell yeah, Noble. One last question before we wrap it up. If there was a piece of advice you could give to somebody who's walked through some of the things you walked through and is just starting out in their recovery, what would that be?
A piece of advice is, you know the lie of the disease. You know the lie of it. It's very evident as much as we try to be denial about it. It's a hamster wheel to death. You know the lie. So give the other part a chance, because it's a lie.
Right.
And we can easily get fooled by it, but just give yourself a chance. You know that outcome. There's a whole beauty and different outcome to getting everything you want back. Is it easy? No. Does it take work? Yes. But it took us work to believe the lie and run in that hamster wheel. And that hamster wheel is just, it's insanity. It's insanity, and it leads to jails, institutions, and death.
Oh, yeah, Noble. Thank you for coming on.
Noble, for sure. Yeah, we really appreciate it, bro. This is like a conversation. It was super good, bro.
I almost cried on that last part. Don't ask me that question.
All right, man. Everybody listening, please go follow us. You guys can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share the story with anybody who needs to hear Noble's story. Also, be sure to follow us on IG, which is Messages Hope Podcast _ between each word, and our TikTok is the same.
We'll see you next week.
Lost up in the limelight, but you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you off forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.